a child is abused or neglected. Every 3.5 minutes, a child is arrested or a minor is arrested for a drug offense. For 3.5 minutes. In every 4.5 hours, a child or a minor will attempt suicide. We live in a world that is not a good place to be a kid. Now, the world that many of us grew up in it's not the same world. And I think we need to realize as a church, it's our responsibility to do something about it. Yes, it's parents, I understand that. But you know what? As a church, it's our responsibility. In 1 Timothy, we saw a statement made by Timothy twice. He called him his son in the faith in 1 Timothy. But in chapter 2, he called him what? My beloved son. It wasn't his child. But he looked on Timothy in such a way that he had a tie to him that he was going to do something to help this young man. And I think as a church, we may not be able to change the world. We may not as a church be able to stop unwed pregnancy. As a church, we may not be able to stop every kid from taking an illegal drug, or we may not be able to stop all the problems of the world. But I do think this, we shouldn't be burying our heads in the sand and not trying to help at least somebody. If not the young people that we bring in on our vans, we should be praying and doing something for our own children and our own grandchildren. I think there's 4 things in 2 Timothy. I'm going to spend most of my time in the 2 Timothy here as we see some things. First thing that you see Paul doing is you see Paul praying for Timothy. He said again, I thank God, in verse 3, I serve from my forefathers with a pure conscience, that without ceasing I have remembrance of thee in my prayers night and day. Night and day. You know what? Something as I was studying this, something that the Lord really impressed upon me. Man, I need to be praying for my kids more every day. And I'm not saying you're not. But what I'm saying is as Paul looked at Timothy, and Paul looked at the thing that Timothy was, the challenge that Timothy had had as a young man there pastoring that church, he could probably look back and he says, I am with a pure conscience, I've been praying for you every day. Night and day. And I think we all need to do that. We all need to not only pray for our own children and pray for our own grandchildren, but you know what? We need to realize, Sabrina needs our church to pray for her every day. Every day. You may not say, you might say, well, Sam has good parents. Sam has Jim and Suzanne. I'm sure Jim and Suzanne is praying for them. But that shouldn't stop Brother Mike from saying, you know what, I need to pray for Sam too. We need to pray for our children. When we think of the world that they are growing up on, we need to pray for the 2 boys too. I didn't mean to bleep you out, but we need to pray for our kids more and more every day. We need to be asking God, Lord, keep my kids on the right path. Lord, help them to make wise choices. We need to be praying that our kids make good friends. I thank the Lord that I have been fortunate with my youngest daughter, Elizabeth, that when she was a kindergartner, it's now, what is it now? It's It's Miller now. It was Haynes back then. But when she first went, man, we prayed. She hooked up with a girl, Lindsay Tyson, and Lindsay Tyson's parents love the Lord. They go to St. Luke's, been faithful members, teach Sunday school at St. Luke's and Methodist Church. But she found a little girl who loves the Lord and goes to church, and I thank God for that. That she's found somebody to hook up for. And we need to pray the same thing for our kids, and we need to pray the same thing for all the kids that go to our church. That they find good friends. That they find people that will keep them from going in a way that does not please the Lord. We need to pray for their friends. We need to pray that in the world in which they live, that they will stay pure. That they will go against the flow that their world takes them. We need to pray that they won't get, as they're going there, that they won't get trapped in a sinful lifestyle that destroys them. And pray, folks. Paul said, without ceasing night and day. You need to make it a point. Every day I'm going to pray for my kids, whether at the moment you wake up, or maybe when you're at lunch, you need to pray for your kids. And you need to pray for them throughout the entire day, whether it's your kids, your grandkids, your great-grandkids, if you have great-grandkids. Pray for them. And ask God to save them. Ask God to help them at school. God, do something with my children. God, help my young man to become a man of God. Help my daughter to grow up and become something that will make a difference in this world. They need our prayers. They need our prayers. Every one of them. You might not have any kids here. Then pick one of our kids. You might go and you might just say, Shalimar, I'm going to pray for you every day the rest of the school year. Just ask God to help you at school. Make you better young man. But we need to pray for them. Doesn't matter whether they're at daycare. Doesn't matter if they're in high school. We need to pray for our kids. We need to pray for our grandkids. And keep them before the throne of the Lord. He said, without ceasing, night and day, I prayed for them. Lamentations, if you want to, you don't have to turn back there. I'm going to read a verse. Lamentations is a book of the Bible that records some of the prayers that Jeremiah prayed. And in Lamentations chapter 2:19 says this, and I think it's one of the things that if you're a parent, you need to write this down. You need to memorize it. Maybe you need to read it, make it a regular part of your life. In Lamentations 2:19, as Jeremiah was praying over Jerusalem, he said, "Arise and cry out in the night, in the beginning of the watches, to pour out your heart like water before the face of the Lord." Pour out your life, he says. Pour out your heart to God. He says, lift up your hands toward Him for the life of thy young children, that faint for hunger in the top of every street. Now, their hunger there was a very literal starvation. But I think in our life, we have a great hunger for truth, a great hunger for real Christianity. Next thing he talked about, not only did he pray for that child, or pray, and as a church we need to pray. I think we should long for our children. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but I want you to notice verse number 4. He says this, greatly desiring to see thee. He says, I want to see you. Now, Paul was in jail. In the context of the verse here is Paul, when he wrote the books of Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, and Philemon, Paul was in jail. They're known as the prison epistles. And after a 2-year period, Paul was released from prison. And it's at that time there's kind of a break between the writings of 1 Timothy and Titus and 2 Timothy, which is Paul's last letter. There was a 2-year period of time. And in that 2-year period, tradition says that Paul actually went to Spain and started churches in Spain, and then went back to Ephesus, where Timothy was. And as Paul was in Ephesus, he was arrested again and was taken back to Rome, where he'll die. And Paul is, with that in mind, it's the idea. I remember your tears, and it's like the separation. Timothy did not want to see Paul go, because Timothy is going to be left in charge of a church, and Paul, his mentor, is going. Paul is the man who was his father in the spiritual realm. He is being arrested and will die. But I like that idea there, as he says, I greatly long to see you. I desire to see you. And I think that's one of the things that we need to understand as a church. We need to long to see our kids. We need to spend time with our children. You need to spend time with your grandchildren. Some of you would probably say, man, I'd love to see my grandkids all the time. I know I would. They'd live with me. That's what I think. I'd be happy with that. But, we need to long to see our kids. Our kids need us. Our kids need to see us. Our kids need to spend time with us. And watching TV with our kids is not spending time with kids. Because, unfortunately, guess what we're doing? For me and my wife, we're watching Home and Garden Channel, okay? The kid just sitting there, there's no connection. Spend time with your kids. Talk to your children. Spend time asking them about their day. We need to make sure we're talking to our kids. Who are your friends? What are you learning at school? How is everything with going on at school? Do you like your teachers? We need to spend time with our kids. Paul said, I long to see you. Man, I want to spend time with you. Paul realized something. Man, I am going to lose my head very soon. I'm going to die. And I won't have any more time to spend with my kids. It is hard to believe, for me, when I first came to this church 15 years ago, I had 3 kids. I had 2 kids in elementary school, 1 not even in school, and 1 in junior high. Now all I have is a junior in high school. And it went like that. It goes fast. And those of you who have smaller children, and spend time with your kids, because it goes like that. And before you know it, guess what? The influence that you might have been able to have, it's gone. It's gone. We need to long to see our kids. Let's apply this as a church. You know what? When the kids come running in, you know what? A lot of times I used to say, "Oh man, I need to get to the donuts before they do." Yeah, they're gonna get my donut. Now, you know what we need to do? And he said, "Man, I am so glad you're here today. Tell me about your week. How you doing?" And if they don't say anything, it's okay. Whereas I asked young Mr. Escudero, "How was your week, Sam?" "I was okay."